Have you ever thought about issuing equity to your key staff members or even a new business partner as part of a business growth plan or part of your succession plan? Well, this week we had a client come to us and they were looking at issuing equity to their key staff members as part of their longer term succession plan. They've been in business for quite some time and retirement is on the horizon. Probably the next 5 to 10 years, the business owner is looking to slowly step out of his business. So in this video, I'm just going to talk you through our thought processes when we get approached in a situation like this. So the first thing that we always ask is, what structure are they operating the business in? And why that's important is because that will determine what rules apply. So in this case, the business owner is operating his business through a discretionary trust. And while that's a really good structure for tax planning, asset protection, all sorts of things like that, you can't have a fixed equity percentage. So what that means is he can't issue equity in the current structure to the employees that he's hoping to do that to. So that's not the end of the line. We don't stop there. The next thing we look at is, what are our options? So from there, I thought about, what about restructuring to a company? And while that's really good, the company will be able to have fixed extra equity through the share structure, so that could work. The next thing we look at then is, if we are going to transfer the business from the trust to the company, what are the tax implications and what are the stamp duty implications? They're the two big things that we consider. So first of all, I'll get into the capital gains side of things. So when we think about capital gains, we want to look at what concessions are available, what discounts are available, and whether there's any exemptions to try and minimize the gains or even bring them down to nil. So the first thing I thought about was a small business restructure rollover, which falls under subdivision 328G. So what that is if you want to transfer your business from a trust, in this instance, to a company, we may be able to defer that capital gain altogether if certain conditions are met. So that's one option. The next option I looked at was an older capital gains tax provision called under Division 122A. And that's a very similar thing where you can roll your business from a trust to a company, provided certain conditions are met, and you can avoid the capital gain until you subsequently sell the business out of that company. So that were two things. We may be able to avoid capital gains at the point of the transfer altogether. So that's very attractive. The next thing I thought about on the capital gains thing is, what if we just crystallize the capital gain? What are the implications there? So if we were to crystallize that capital gain on the transfer from the trust to the company, we may be able to apply, we should be able to apply the 50% general capital gains discount. So let's say, for example, the business is worth $1 million. We transfer it from the trust to the company. If we apply the general 50% capital gains discount for holding that asset for more than 12 months, we can bring the assessable gain down to $500,000. But then there's another layer of discounts that we may be able to apply, or concessions I should say. We should be able to apply the small business capital gains concessions. So amongst that, one of them is the 50% 50% active asset discount. So provided we meet those conditions, we may be able to reduce that capital gains again from $1 million down to $500,000 using the general discount. And then if we meet the conditions for the active asset discount, we can drop that capital gain, the assessable part of it, down to $250,000. And that's pretty good. There'll still be a reasonable amount of tax to pay on that, but the benefits of doing this is that then the company will have a cost base of $1 million, which will reduce any future capital gains. Now, the capital gains and the small business concessions don't end there. There are some further concessions we may be able to apply. So one of those is the retirement exemption. Now, this gentleman is more than 55 years old, so he may be able to completely get rid of that capital gain, the remaining $250,000, by choosing to use the retirement exemption. So this option might be really good because one, will crystallize a capital gain, but he won't have to pay any capital gains tax on it. In the new business, now the cost base of those shares in that business would be $1 million, which would reduce any future capital gains. So that's a really good option compared to the rollover, so that's something that we considered. The next thing we look at is probably stamp duty, because often when you transfer an asset from one entity to another, then there are state-based stamp duties or transfer duties. So in Queensland in recent years, I think it was September 2020, the Queensland government, and this was a response to COVID, said that if you structure from a trust to a company, then there may be some stamp duty exemptions. So I've looked at some of the criteria for that, and it looks like we may be able to meet all those criteria, which would also mean that stamp duty is not payable either. So if we can eliminate capital gains tax or minimize it and eliminate stamp duty, then that takes out two of the very big hurdles that come with transferring a business from one entity to another. There's still lots of little things that you need to do to sort of make it all work, but we've ticked off a couple of the really big things. So that's sort of the general thought process that we go through. And so if you're interested in doing something like that, and it's been on your mind and you're unsure of how it's all going to work from a tax perspective, then we're more than happy to have a chat with you and talk things through, and hopefully we can help you out.